Hey everybody, and welcome to another video with Ray's Storm. So Ray has now been with me for 7 weeks, and those 7 weeks have flown by quickly. He's spent a lot of this time getting fit and getting stronger throughout his body. Not only is he turned out every night for over 13 hours, that walking and grazing does a lot for their fitness level, but he's also ridden 4 to 5 days per week, and that includes workout in the hills and in cross country and doing his regular flat work. I feel like I've reached a point in his training where we're now ready to introduce poles, and this is really exciting because poles are the first step towards jumping. In this video, you're going to see start to finish Ray's first introduction to poles and watch his reaction to the complexity and watch how I help him reduce his anxiety and his tension level to cope with the poles better. So I've set up a variety of pole exercises in the arena today, and I'm starting off with just single poles on a figure eight. And you can see his first reaction there is to stiffen his body and kind of jump over the pole. As a horse gets more experience over poles, they learn to soften their top line and cope with kind of differences in the distance to the pole. They can elongate their neck and their step and their shoulder, or they can compress it without problem. So now I'm going to help him as his trainer to cope with the tension that he has around the pole. And I do that by bringing into a walk transition and walk over the pole and then proceed to the next one. So at this point, I had my student Anna change the camera angle. I wanted to show something that I was feeling as a rider, which was every single time he came to a pole, he was pretty much pushing hard left into my leg and becoming crooked to the pole. You can see the tracks in the sand that show kind of an S turn on the way to the pole. Just because today was the first day of us jumping poles, I knew that I had a lot being thrown at me and a lot being thrown at Ray. He was trying to cope as best as he could with the complexity of the situation. However, I needed to remind myself that it's very important to establish priorities even from the very beginning. And one of those big priorities is straightness. And you'll see here on this next approach that once I made it my priority to fix his straightness, it wasn't actually that difficult, which proves that it's something that I need to keep on the top of my list of every single time I go over a pole, make sure that he is staying straight. So now that I know what problems I need to prioritize, I am ready to progress from single poles to more complex problems. And I'm going to start with 2 poles in a row, and then that will lead to 4 poles on the circle. So this first time through is a bit of beginner's luck. He actually does it pretty darn well. But then, very typical of a off-the-track thoroughbred, he then comes back around and tries a little bit too hard this next time. And because he's trying too hard, he actually tangles up his feet into a bit of a dilemma. So at this stage, I'm kind of going along with his idea and releasing my hands and trying to go with his motion so I don't get him in the mouth. But then, just like I did at the beginning of the workout, I reduce his speed so he can thoughtfully think about the poles without carrying tension through them. So it worked on the 2 poles, but it still didn't work on the 4 poles in a row. And I'm actually left here thinking that I have a horse who really cares about where his feet are. And that's going to be, in the end, a good personality trait for him to have for jumping. So once a horse thinks that they can solve the riddle of 4 poles in a row by being acrobatic like he is, you need to kind of reinforce the idea that he can stay calm over a single pole. So I go back to my 2 poles on the figure 8 and reinforce the idea that he can stay relaxed over them. And I also decide to make life a little bit easier for him and elongate the poles so there's a greater distance between them, more like these 2 poles that I'm coming to. So I stretch out the 4 trot poles into 4 9-foot poles. So now hopefully I've reduced the complexity of the puzzle in Ray's mind. I've made the poles a little more spaced out so he can have time to kind of put his feet down and think about what he's doing. Notice that he still goes left with his shoulder, but he does continue to trot rather than leaping and stiffening. So I think this is a good improvement. And now I'm starting to see big improvements. He is still kind of working out what foot to put where, but he's no longer leaning into my hand and stiffening and jumping the poles. So he's starting to learn how to keep a rhythm and keep relaxation through this puzzle. So I finally change direction and go the other way. And despite the fact that Ray sees somebody walking out on cross country and is highly distracted, I'm really pleased with his response when he turns back and looks at the poles. You can start to see him do what I mentioned earlier, which is change his stride length to be either stretching with his shoulder or doing a short step, and it doesn't concern him. He actually stays really happy throughout the whole thing. So I finished this workout by reinforcing the long and low stretching exercise. He is unable to do this at this stage in his training at the beginning of the workout, but he is able to do it at the end of the workout, which is fairly typical for a green horse. I'm looking for him to stretch down, reaching for the contact, and I'm able to put my leg on, and it results in a larger step rather than a quicker step. And when you ask for a horse to step deeper with their hind end, you are really asking for engagement and for them to connect with you into the hand. This stretching exercise is really important to have in the list of things you can do with a horse because it's important for you to get their relaxation and get their focus back on you when they're distracted. And it's a great way of building strength over their top line. Even though success comes in fits and starts, I feel like this is a really great place where we are today. I'm really enjoying the moments that he gives me his complete attention, his complete focus, and the relaxation is something that is natural for him. So he is an off-the-track thoroughbred with a lot of potential. And thanks for watching.